The seafloor mapping shouldn't have revealed a perfect hexagon. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stared at her sonar readouts for the third time, coffee growing cold beside her keyboard as she traced the unnaturally geometric shape with her finger. 2 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean's surface, nature didn't work in perfect angles and symmetrical patterns. "Mike, are you seeing this?" She called to her research assistant, who was already leaning over her shoulder, his usual jovial expression replaced with focused intensity. "If you mean the impossible shape that looks like someone dropped a giant 20 die in the ocean, then yeah," Mike Torres replied, adjusting his thick-rimmed glasses. "The readings are stable, Doc. Whatever it is, it's real." Elena pushed back from the cramped control station of their research vessel, the Nautilus Prime. After 15 years of studying deep-sea anomalies, she thought she'd seen everything. Underwater volcanoes, previously undiscovered species, even the occasional military debris. But this was different. The hexagon was nearly half a mile wide, and according to their instruments, it was emitting a faint electromagnetic pulse that shouldn't exist at that depth. "We need to get the ROV down there," Elena decided, already reaching for the remote operating vehicle's controls. Mike nodded, moving to the secondary station to monitor the descent. The ROV's journey to the anomaly was tense. Every 100 meters brought new questions. The water around the hexagon seemed to shimmer, creating interference patterns in their video feed that Elena had never encountered before. As they approached the structure's surface, their instruments began to malfunction. "Power fluctuations are off the charts," Mike reported, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "Whatever this thing is, it's affecting our equipment. Maybe we should." He never finished the sentence. The hexagon suddenly pulsed with brilliant blue light, visible even through 2 miles of ocean. Elena felt a strange pulling sensation, as if the gravity on the ship had shifted sideways. Warning alarms blared throughout the vessel. "Mike, shut it down. Pull the ROV back." Elena shouted, but the controls were unresponsive. The pull grew stronger, and to her horror, she realized the entire ship was being dragged toward the light. "Mayday, mayday." Mike was already on the radio. "This is research vessel Nautilus Prime, coordinates 32.7157 degrees in 156.2884 degrees doi. We are experiencing an unknown phenomenon and losing control of our vessel. Request immediate." The light engulfed them. Elena felt a sensation like being turned inside out, a moment of impossible pressure. And then, silence. When her vision cleared, they weren't in the Pacific Ocean anymore. The Nautilus Prime hung suspended in what appeared to be a massive crystalline chamber, water and all, like a ship in a bottle made by giants. Before them stood a being that defied description. Its body seemed to shift between states of matter, sometimes solid, sometimes flowing like liquid mercury. Multiple appendages moved with precise, almost mathematical grace. But it was the creature's face, a constantly rearranging pattern of geometric shapes, that held Elena's attention. "Yo, dog, I heard you like research." The being's voice resonated directly in their minds, somehow managing to sound both ancient and like a decade-old internet meme. "So we put some science in your science so you can discover while you discover." Elena and Mike exchanged bewildered looks. Did an interdimensional being just quote exhibit at us? Mike whispered. "Welcome to the Nexus, humans," the entity continued, its form rippling with what might have been amusement. "We've been monitoring your progress for some time. Your cat videos are particularly fascinating." Elena gripped the edge of her console, her scientific mind racing to process what she was seeing. "Who? What are you?" "We are the architects," the being replied. "And you have just become part of a situation that, as your species would say, is about to get real." Elena's scientific training hadn't prepared her for floating in a crystalline chamber, while an entity that looked like a screensaver made flesh quoted internet memes at her. The Nautilus Prime hung suspended in its bubble of seawater, instruments still frantically trying to make sense of their situation. "I know Kung Fu," The geometric being announced, its form shifting into something vaguely reminiscent of Keanu Reeves before dissolving back into abstract patterns. "They're quoting the Matrix now," Mike muttered, frantically typing notes on his tablet. "Either we're having a shared hallucination, or these beings learned English through our media." The entity's form rippled in what might have been approval. "Give the human a cookie. Your digital transmissions have been most enlightening. We particularly enjoy what you call memes, fascinating packets of cultural information." Elena took a deep breath, forcing herself to think analytically. "You've been studying us through our internet, our broadcasts. All your base are belong to us." The being confirmed, then quickly added, "That was humor. We do not actually possess your bases." Before Elena could respond, a new figure entered the chamber. Unlike the fluid geometry of the first being, this one had a more defined form, crystalline structures arranged in a roughly humanoid shape, glowing with internal light. When it spoke, its voice was more structured, though still tinged with odd pop culture references. "I am Administrator Lux 742, it announced. "And this is where the fun begins. Plot twist. Your dimension is in danger." Mike raised his hand like a student in class. "Quick question. What kind of danger are we talking about? Because our dimension was doing pretty okay when we left it about 5 minutes ago." The administrator's crystalline form pulsed with urgency. "Your species has reached a critical point in its development. Your memes, your digital culture, they're not just communication. They're power. Raw, unrefined dimensional energy that could either evolve your species or tear reality apart." Elena frowned. "You're saying our internet memes are dangerous?" "More than you know," the first entity interjected. "They're creating quantum resonance patterns across dimensional boundaries. Every 'this is fine dog,' every distracted boyfriend, every Rick roll generates specific frequency signatures that..." "That what?" Elena pressed. "They're weakening the walls between dimensions," Administrator Lux 742 explained. "And certain entities in our realm want to exploit this weakness. They believe they can use your cultural energy as a weapon." Mike laughed nervously. "So you're telling me that somewhere out there, an alien warlord is planning to conquer dimensions using Grumpy Cat?" Neither being seemed to find this amusing. Instead, the chamber darkened, and holographic images appeared around them, visualizations of dimensional barriers wearing thin, overlapping like soap bubbles about to merge. "We brought you here because we need your help," the administrator continued. "Your understanding of your own cultural transmissions, combined with our technology, might be the only way to prevent a catastrophe." Elena's mind raced with the implications. But why us specifically? We're marine biologists, not whatever this situation needs. The first entity's form shifted into something resembling a smile. "Because you found us. Because you questioned what you saw instead of dismissing it. And because, as your people say, modern problems require modern solutions." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The crystalline walls pulsed with red light, and both alien beings turned sharply toward one source. Through the transparent walls, Elena and Mike could see other chambers, other structures, and what looked like explosions. "They're here," Administrator Lux 742 announced grimly. "The Memetic Liberation Front has begun their assault." The first entity's form became more rigid, militant. "Time to choose, humans. Help us prevent dimensional collapse, or watch both our realms fall to chaos. What is your response?" Elena looked at Mike, who shrugged and gave her a half-smile. "Well, Doc," he said, "we did want to make groundbreaking discoveries in our field." She turned back to the aliens, straightening her shoulders. "Okay," she said, "teach us what we need to know. But first, can we get out of this water bubble? My socks are soaked." The chamber hummed, and suddenly the Nautilus Prime was resting on a solid surface, the water draining away through invisible channels. As Elena and Mike stepped onto the crystalline floor, the administrator gestured, and a complex holographic interface appeared before them. "This is the translation protocol," it explained. "Through it, we can analyze and potentially stabilize the mimetic energy signatures affecting our dimensions. But we need your human perspective too." Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer this time. Through the walls, they could see figures moving. Some fluid like the first entity they'd met, others crystalline like the administrator, and some in forms that hurt to look at directly. "Less explaining, more doing," Mike suggested, already studying the holographic controls. "Pretty sure those explosions aren't getting further away." Elena nodded, her trained scientific mind already adapting to the impossible situation. "Show us how this works," she told the administrator. "If we're going to save our dimension from being torn apart by weaponized memes, we should probably start now." The beings began their instruction, but Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't telling them everything. As she learned to read the alien interfaces, she caught glimpses of data that suggested this crisis had been building for longer than the aliens were admitting. She kept these observations to herself, focusing on the task at hand. After all, she thought, one multidimensional crisis at a time. The translation protocol interface hummed beneath Elena's fingers as she worked, its holographic displays showing cascading waves of what the aliens called mimetic energy. After 3 hours of training, she was beginning to understand why cat videos could threaten the fabric of reality, though she wasn't entirely happy about it. "Look at this pattern," she called to Mike, who was working with a different set of controls nearby. "Every time there's a viral trend on Earth, it creates these ripple effects across dimensional boundaries. But something's not right about the timing." Mike looked up from his station, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he was running purely on adrenaline and scientific curiosity. "What do you mean?" "These energy spikes, they're too regular, almost like they're being orchestrated." Administrator Lux 742 finished, its crystalline form dimming slightly. "We had hoped you wouldn't notice so quickly." Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer than the previous ones. Through the walls, they could see fighting had broken out in adjacent sections of the facility. The fluid form aliens clashed with crystalline ones in battles that bent light and space around them. "I think," Elena said carefully, "it's time you told us what's really going on here." The administrator's form flickered, a sign they'd learned indicated distress. "The Mimetic Liberation Front isn't just trying to weaponize your cultural energy. They're the ones who have been manipulating it all along, creating artificial viral trends, steering your internet's collective consciousness." "Wait," Mike interrupted. "Are you saying someone's been secretly controlling what becomes viral on Earth?" Actually, that explains a lot about TikTok." Before the administrator could respond, a new alarm blared, different from the others. The holographic displays turned red, showing a massive surge of energy approaching their location. "They've broken through the outer defenses," the first entity announced, its form swirling with agitation. "And they've brought their secret weapon." The chamber walls became transparent, revealing a sight that made Elena's scientific mind revel. A massive construct of pure energy, shaped like an amalgamation of every viral meme from the past decade, twisted into something that hurt to look at directly. "What in the name of peer-reviewed research is that?" Elena gasped. "The mimetic singularity," Administrator Lux 742 said grimly. "They found a way to combine and concentrate the energy of thousands of viral trends into a single entity. If it fully manifests in either dimension, then both realities will be rewritten according to the logic of internet memes." The fluid entity finished. "Everything will become content." Mike stared at the approaching monstrosity, his face pale. "So what you're saying is, if we fail, our entire universe will basically become one giant shitpost." "Language," Elena muttered automatically, her mind racing. "But wait, if they've been manipulating our trends, controlling what goes viral." She turned back to the translation protocol interface, fingers flying over the controls. "Then there must be a pattern to it. Everything leaves traces. That's basic science. Mike, help me analyze these energy signatures. Look for recurring frequencies, anything that might tell us how they're controlling the flow. As they worked, the battle drew closer. The chamber shook with impacts, and Alina could hear what sounded disturbingly like ancient memes being used as battle cries from both sides. Found something. Mike shouted over the chaos. Look at these base frequencies. They're all multiples of the same number. It's like they're all building on each other, creating some kind of resonance pattern. Alina studied the data, her eyes widening. They're not just controlling individual trends. They're building something. Each viral moment is like a brick in a larger construction. The singularity isn't their weapon. It's their key. Administrator Lux 742 finished. A key to unlock the barriers between all dimensions. They believe that by merging all realities, they can create a perfect universe of pure information, pure content. Well, that's horrifying, Mike commented, still typing furiously. But if we can see the pattern, maybe we can disrupt it. Doc, remember that time we had to cancel out those underwater pressure waves that were confusing the whales? Alina's eyes lit up. Destructive interference. If we can generate an opposing frequency pattern, we might be able to unravel their control structure. The fluid entity caught on, its form brightening. But it would require precise calculations, and we're running out of time. The chamber rocked with another impact, and cracks began appearing in the crystalline walls. Through them, they could see the mimetic singularity approaching. A writhing mass of digital culture gone mad, threatening to consume everything in its path. Alina made a decision. Administrator, give us full access to the translation protocol. All of it. That level of control could be dangerous, Lux 742 warned. If you make even a small mistake, then both our dimensions are doomed anyway. Alina cut in. We're scientists. Taking calculated risks for the greater good is practically in our job description. The administrator hesitated for a moment, then gestured. New controls appeared on their interfaces, deep layers of the system previously hidden from them. Quick question, Mike said as they began working with the new systems. If we do manage to disrupt their control pattern, what happens to all that mimetic energy they've built up? Nobody answered. They were all too busy preparing for what would either be the salvation of two dimensions, or the moment everything became a cosmic-scale internet reference. The singularity drew closer, and Alina could hear it now. Thousands of memes playing simultaneously, a cacophony of digital culture that threatened to overwhelm her sanity. She forced herself to focus on the calculations, on the pattern they needed to create. Ready? She asked Mike. He gave her a tight smile. As I'll ever be. Let's save reality from becoming one giant meme. They activated their countermeasure just as the chamber walls began to crack. The moment they activated the countermeasure, reality itself seemed to hiccup. The translation protocol's interfaces blazed with light as their carefully calculated interference pattern collided with the mimetic singularity's energy field. The resulting shockwave sent everyone, human and alien alike, staggering. Did it work? Mike shouted over the din of reality, trying to decide which laws of physics it preferred. Alina watched the readings on her display, her heart sinking. No, something's wrong. The interference pattern isn't strong enough. It's barely making a dent in their control structure. The administrator's crystalline form flickered anxiously. The singularity is too powerful. They've accumulated too much mimetic energy over the years. Your solution is mathematically sound, but we lack the raw power to implement it effectively. Through the cracking chamber walls, Alina could see the mimetic singularity advancing. Its form had changed. Now it appeared to be actively absorbing the chaos around it, growing stronger with each moment. Fragments of viral videos, memes, and digital trends swirled within its mass like debris in a tornado. There has to be something else we can try, Alina insisted, her scientific mind refusing to accept failure. She studied the interface, looking for anything they might have missed. Wait, what's this sub-process running in the background? The fluid entity suddenly moved between her and the display, its form unusually rigid. That's merely system maintenance, not relevant to our current. No, Elena interrupted, her eyes narrowing. These readings, this isn't maintenance. This is some kind of continuous operation that's been running since before we arrived. Mike, are you seeing this? Mike was already analyzing the data on his own terminal. Yeah, and it gets weirder. Doc, look at the timestamp on this process. According to this, it's been running for approximately 13.8 billion years. Elena finished, her voice cold. Roughly the age of our universe. She turned to face the administrator. Want to tell us what's really going on here? The crystalline being's glow dimmed noticeably. We may have omitted certain details about the nature of your reality. Another explosion rocked the chamber, but Elena held her ground. Tell us. Now. The fluid entity rippled with what might have been resignation. Your universe isn't exactly natural. It's more of a project. A project, Mike repeated flatly. An experiment in autonomous reality generation, the administrator clarified. We created your universe as a test bed for new forms of consciousness and information processing. The internet, memes, viral trends, they were meant to be a way for your reality to develop its own evolutionary path. Elena felt her worldview shifting dramatically. You're saying our entire universe is basically a computer program. More like a quantum simulation running on a substrate of pure information. The fluid entity corrected. But yes, essentially. Mike laughed hysterically. So the simulation hypothesis was right. Reality is a computer program. That's focus, Elena snapped, though her own mind was reeling. What does this have to do with our current crisis? The administrator's form pulsed with urgency. The Memetic Liberation Front discovered the truth. They believe that by gaining control of your reality's base code, what you call memes and viral trends, they can rewrite the fundamental laws of existence, create a new reality in their own image. Elena processed this information, her scientific training warring with the sheer impossibility of it all. But as she studied the data streaming across her display, a new possibility occurred to her. If our reality is running on your systems, she said slowly, then we're not just fighting against their control of memes. We're fighting them on a fundamental level, the level of reality's source code. The fluid entity brightened. Yes, and if we could access those base systems, we could potentially rewrite their changes before they happen. Mike finished, catching on. Like using System Restore on the universe. Another impact shook the chamber, and part of the ceiling began to cave in. The memetic singularity was almost upon them, its mass now large enough to distort space itself. One problem, Elena pointed out. According to these readings, accessing those systems would require an authentication level that none of us have. Even you two don't have that kind of clearance. The administrator and the fluid entity exchanged what might have been meaningful looks. There is one way, the administrator said hesitantly. The system has a backdoor, an emergency override designed to prevent exactly this kind of situation. But using it would require what? Elena demanded. Administrative access can be granted to entities that are part of the simulation, but only if they become aware of their true nature while maintaining their original consciousness patterns. Which you just did. Mike's eyes widened. Are you saying that by telling us we're in a simulation, you've actually given us the power to control it? That's actually kind of brilliant, Elena admitted, but also terrifying. How do we even begin to? She was cut off as the chamber wall finally burst inward, and the full force of the memetic singularity began to pour through. The maelstrom of pure information threatened to overwhelm them all. No time for a tutorial, the fluid entity shouted over the chaos. You'll have to learn on the job. The access protocols are being transferred to your interfaces now. Remember, you're not just fighting their control of memes anymore. You're fighting for the right of your reality to exist independently. Elena and Mike shared a look, both understanding the weight of what they were about to attempt. "Ready to help me debug the universe?" Elena asked. Mike adjusted his glasses, which had somehow survived everything so far. "Let's do it. But if we survive this, I'm putting Reality Administrator on my business cards." They turned to face the incoming wave of chaos, their interfaces now glowing with newfound power. The battle for reality's source code was about to begin. The universe's source code streamed across Elena's interface in cascading lines of impossible mathematics. With her newfound administrative access, she could see everything. The fundamental forces that shaped reality, the quantum threads that bound consciousness to matter, and most importantly, the vulnerability the Memetic Liberation Front was trying to exploit. "They're using viral trends as update packets," she called to Mike, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "Each meme is like a tiny piece of code being injected into reality's operating system." Mike was working just as frantically at his own station, sweat beading on his forehead. "Yeah, and look at the execution pattern. They're not just trying to modify our reality, they're trying to compile a whole new one, using our universe as a development environment." The memetic singularity surged around them, held back only by the administrator's failing shields. Through its churning mass of pure information, Elena could now see the code behind the chaos. Millions of viral moments, each one a carefully crafted instruction in a reality-altering program. "We need to act fast," the fluid entity urged, its form flickering as it helped maintain the shields. "Once their compile sequence completes, everything we know becomes a beta test for their new reality." Elena finished. "But maybe we can use that against them. Mike, remember what happens when you try to compile bad code?" Mike's eyes lit up. "Runtime errors. If we can inject some contradictions into their instruction set, we can crash their entire program." Elena was already modifying the code, her mind racing. "Quick, what's the most contradictory meme you can think of?" "That's like asking me to pick my favorite mathematical constant," Mike protested. "But, wait, what about paradoxes? Those 'this statement is false' type things?" Elena's fingers flew across the interface. "Perfect. We can use logical paradoxes to create errors in their execution stack. Administrator, can you show us how to format these as viable reality instructions?" The crystalline being's glow brightened. "Already done. But be careful. Manipulating base reality code is dangerous. One wrong variable, and we could accidentally divide by 0 and delete the universe," Mike suggested. "Worse, you could turn all matter into Comic Sans." Elena shuddered. "Okay, let's not do that. Focus on the task at hand. Mike, I'm sending you a code segment. Start embedding paradoxes into their instruction set. I'll work on a containment protocol for the fallout." They worked with frantic precision, racing against the singularity's compilation sequence. Elena could feel reality straining around them as they manipulated its fundamental code. Each change they made sent ripples through the fabric of existence, causing brief glitches in the laws of physics. Doc," Mike called out. "Is gravity supposed to be optional?" "Just a side effect," Elena assured him, though she wasn't entirely sure. "Keep going." The memetic singularity seemed to sense what they were doing. It began to pulse with angry energy, its mass of viral content trying to adapt to their changes. But with each paradox they introduced, its structure became more unstable. "It's working," the fluid entity announced. "Their compilation sequence is showing errors." Elena watched the readouts carefully. "Yes, but not fast enough. We need something bigger, something that will force a complete system crash." That's when it hit her, the ultimate paradox. She began typing furiously, accessing the deepest levels of reality's code. "Elena," the administrator warned, "what are you doing? Something incredibly stupid or brilliant. I'm not sure which yet." Her fingers flew across the interface. "I'm going to make the singularity try to compile a program that deletes itself before it can execute." Mike's eyes widened. "The grandmother paradox's code. That's Just crazy enough to work, Elena finished. But I'll need your help. We have to synchronize the execution perfectly, or we'll create a recursive loop that could crash everything. Together, they began the final sequence. The chamber filled with crackling energy as reality itself struggled to process their commands. The mimetic singularity writhed, caught between its own program and their paradoxical insertions. Now, Elena shouted. They executed the code simultaneously. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality hiccuped, skipped, and seemed to fold in on itself. The singularity's mass of viral content began to unravel, its carefully constructed program falling apart as it tried to process an unprocessable instruction. Everyone braced for impact. The administrator called out, "Reality reboot in 3, 2, 1. The universe blinked. When Elena's consciousness reformed, she found herself back on the Nautilus Prime, floating peacefully in the Pacific Ocean. Mike was beside her, looking as dazed as she felt. Through the ship's windows, the water was clear and normal, no sign of the hexagonal anomaly that had started it all. Did we do it?" Mike asked hesitantly. Elena checked their instruments. Everything seemed normal, almost too normal. "I think so. But how can we be sure it wasn't all just some shared hallucination?" As if in answer, their main console screen flickered to life. A message appeared. Reality stability restored. Unauthorized reality modifications contained. Administrative privileges revoked. Sorry, but we can't let you keep those. P.S. Your cat videos are safe, but maybe cool it with the deep fake memes for a while. Management. Elena and Mike stared at the message until it faded away. "So," Mike said finally, "what do we put in our research paper about this?" Elena laughed, the sound carrying equal parts relief and lingering disbelief. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Some things the scientific community isn't ready for." She paused, then added, "Though maybe we should start a blog." As they began their journey back to shore, Elena couldn't help but look at their sonar readings one last time. For just a moment, she thought she saw a perfect hexagon flickering at the edge of their range. Then it was gone, leaving only the random patterns of nature, or what passed for nature in a universe that might or might not be an advanced computer program. "Hey Mike," she called out. "Yeah, Doc. Next research trip. Let's study something simple, like deep-sea volcanic vents." "Sounds good to me," he agreed. "Though I have to admit, Reality Administrator would have looked great on my resume." Somewhere, in dimensions beyond human comprehension, two entities watched their monitors with satisfaction. "Think they'll be okay?" the fluid one asked. The administrator's crystalline form glowed warmly. "They'll be fine. Humans are remarkably adaptable, though we should probably update our firewall protocols." "Already done," the fluid entity confirmed. "I used a cat meme as the encryption key. No one will ever suspect." And somewhere in the vast network of reality's code, a small subroutine continued to run, protecting the universe from those who would rewrite it, one viral trend at a time.